Everybody, if you were in Ontario, you were potentially woken up to an emergency alert, and it says the Province of Ontario Emergency Bulletin, which applies to people within 10 kilometers of the Pickering Nuclear Generating Station. An incident was reported at the Pickering Nuclear Station. There has been no abnormal release of radioactivity from the station, and emergency staff are responding to the situation. People near the Pickering Nuclear Generation Station do not need to take any proactive actions at this time. Remain tuned to local media for further information and instructions. And I mean, right? A little bit. Everything is under control, situation normal. And, well, as it turns out, they're reporting that it was an error. Whoops, we didn't mean to send that out. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Here's global news, and this was sent out at 7:38 and then updated at 8:25. And it says Pickering Nuclear Generation Station emergency alert issued in error, OPG says. And, well, basically that's all the article says. Like, whoops. So links in the description. They will be updating it. It's interesting. I mean, within context with the Iranian downing of the plane, and a lot of people are talking about uranium-1 connections. A lot of people are talking about how many nuclear scientists and very, very intelligent people studying very difficult things at Canadian universities who were flying back to Iran to get married, and because they had family there and things. So are you making these connections, right? Are you seeing what I'm saying here, right? It's interesting. It's interesting. All of these things within context. And whoops, don't worry about it, guys. Nothing happened. Everything's fine. Nothing happened. Nothing happened at the nuclear power station. Nothing happened, right? Do you remember right after SNC Lavalin broke? Nothing happened. I can unequivocally say nothing happened. Nothing happened. Just go back to work. Pay your taxes. It's so interesting. And maybe nothing happened. Maybe nothing happened. Maybe something did happen. Who knows at this point in time? Who knows? And do you trust the people to tell you? Well, the people in charge, like the people who have to send these alerts, right? They're being sent in error, or they say they're being sent in error because nothing happened, right? But who knows? So context matters. And here's Charles Adler, and Charles Adler is a broadcaster. He's a global news radio network broadcaster, and he says on Twitter, and what I'm trying to show you here, we're moving on from the nuclear accident that wasn't an accident, and nothing needs to be said about anything because it didn't happen in the first place. We're moving on from that to blame Trump for Iran. And this was posted at 1 a.m. on January 10th. So early in this, Mr. Adler was saying this is Trump's fault, and I'm just using this as one more example of blame Trump, and it's not a up-to-date example, so I want to point it out. But I think that the Canadian media's focus on trying to blame Trump for Iran's actions is so interesting, especially considering the rest of the context. And Mr. Adler says context matters. They wouldn't have done this. They didn't mean to do this, and all sorts of other stuff. The same talking points that I was talking about yesterday within my comment section. It's all over the internet at this point in time. If you talk about Iran, you're going to have 10 people telling you that you're wrong. So I'm wrong. And that's okay. I'm talking about it, and that's the point, right? But I don't think this is Donald Trump's fault. It doesn't matter which way you slice it. Iran has got a whole lot more. It's not like Iran was super peaceful and then Donald Trump got the presidency and boom, Iran was like, okay, now it's time to go. Right? It's like they've got a decade or more of saber rattling and unrest in the region, both like covertly with Soleimani and Hezbollah, who apparently are just misunderstood. They're the only ones fighting ISIS, don't you know? I'm pretty sure that Trump destroyed ISIS. I'm pretty sure, and there's a whole lot to go along with that. There's been some discussions about CIA operatives funding ISIS, making sure that they're well funded, and there's precedent in American history for that. Have you guys seen that Tom Cruise movie, American Made, I think it's called? Hold on. American Made. This movie outlines how the United States funded drugs to come into the country and people too. And well, I mean, the whole movie, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's wild. And Wag the Dog's another one. I'm not going to do movie reviews because that'd be weird. But man, this one and Wag the Dog, the real world is stranger than you think. And so having the CIA turn a blind eye to bad actions in the Middle East because maybe that benefits American interests, right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend, or something to that effect. I'm not sure. If the United States foreign operatives overseen by the CIA or FBI or whoever's overseeing these people decided to just allow Iran to run around in the Middle East, destabilizing people, that's different than Trump's foreign policy. And maybe that's why the increased attack. Maybe that's why people don't like what Trump's doing. The media doesn't like what Trump's doing, etc. Who knows? I don't know. But it's really interesting to see the coordinated march to the drumbeat of it's Donald Trump's fault, when clearly Iran has been allowed and has been getting away for years with lots of programs meant to maybe benefit American interests, but also Iranian interests. And if that's okay, then you let that continue. But apparently, Donald Trump is very clear. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, and he will not tolerate plans to attack Americans anywhere in the world. And if Iran doesn't like that, which apparently they didn't, and they planned attacks, they're going to suffer the consequences. And ultimately, now we're in a situation where Canadians, regardless of, on paper, they were Canadians, right? Canadian Iranians, have been shot down in a Ukrainian jet by the Iranian regime. And that's not Donald Trump's fault. It's not his fault, period. So that was a long walk to get there. I apologize. Here are protests in Iran after the military. So it would be like Trudeau admitting, yeah, we blew up that Ukrainian airliner. Sorry about that. It was during a military action. So, like, would you call for Trudeau to step down, or would Canadians just move on, just like SNC? Honestly, I like to do predictions and things like that. Usually, it's predictions about elections and results of by-elections and things. But I don't think this Iran thing is going to hurt Trudeau even as much as SNC. If it's just up to the news, I think there's 2 or 3 more days, unless something really big comes out of this, like really big, like, who know? I don't know what could be big enough that would actually touch Trudeau himself. So I don't think this is going to hurt him. I think it'll be a less of a blip than SNC. And regardless of the reaction, I think we've seen the reaction. The reaction is they kind of did it on purpose. Whoops. Blame Trump, right? But the people of Iran don't blame Trump. The people of Iran blame their military, blame their leaders, and they're calling for Khomeini to step down. Here's the MSNBC, MSN.com, reporting, quote, protesters in Iran are demanding that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khomeini step down after the country's military admitted to accidentally downing a Ukrainian passenger jet, killing all 176 on board. Ukrainian International Airlines flight PS752 crashed shortly after leaving Imam Khomeini International Airport in the Iranian capital of Tehran on Wednesday. It came days after President Donald Trump ordered airborne strike in Iraq to kill Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Iran Revolutionary Guard Quds Force, on January 3rd, escalating tensions between the countries. On Saturday afternoon, thousands of people gathered in Tehran's main square as meetings organized on social media to mourn the dead transformed into protests against the military's mistake. The New York Times reported chants in videos seen on social media by the newspaper include "Death to liars, death to the dictator, and you have no shame." And there's more in this story. This shoe, very, very, very purposefully used by the media. It's everywhere. I've seen it on tweets. I don't know what it means. It's red. That's interesting, right? It's a girl's shoe. All of that's interesting. It's so interesting. Especially knowing back channels and they use public comms to communicate using Twitter. And I mean, anybody been watching Comey's Twitter? It's interesting stuff. I mean, it's kind of like watching a spy film, right? Really interesting. So, I mean, I hope you're paying attention, right? That's the point. Here's a bunch of tweets from Iran, and the tweets are explaining it. I'm not going to show any of the videos, but here we go. It says, Iranians themselves chant, Soleimani was a murderer. His leader is also a murderer. So why is the far left in America and Canada keeps defending Soleimani against President Trump? Here's another one. Protests continue in Tehran. Protesters are chanting many of the same slogans from the Iran protests of November 2019. They're chanting, the regime told us the enemy is the U.S., but actually our enemy is right here, in reference to the regime itself. Here's some more. Now in Iran, the people do not disrespect the flag of the USA and Israel. They say all over Iran, we are not the enemy of the USA and Israel. Our enemy is the people of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So they're not stepping on the flag is the point of this one. When the flag is being displayed on the ground, meant to be stepped on and disrespected. This is death to the Islamic Republic, down with Khomeini. These are the Iranian protesters. And this is yesterday at 7:06 p.m. Just giving you a taste of what's being said out there, right? Here's another one. Iranian protesters are chanting human error is what we did in 1979. They're referring to the Islamic Revolution as the biggest mistake the Iranians made in history. Here's another one. Okay, well this is Donald Trump, and I want to point this out. I haven't seen this on any Canadian news, right? I was looking on the Canadian newspapers, but Donald Trump was tweeting in Persian. And what does this say? Well, here's the tweet, right? And this is 4:46 p.m. yesterday, January 11th, and this says, "To the brave and suffering Iranian people, I've stood with you since the beginning of my presidency, and my government will continue to stand with you. We are following your protests closely. Your courage is inspiring." And here's the second tweet, again in Persian, and through Google Translate, it says, "The Iranian government should allow human rights groups to monitor and report on the current reality of protests in the Iranian people. We should not see the peaceful killing of protesters again or the internet shut down. The world is watching." And interesting phrasing there. Again, if you're paying attention, that's a phrase been used. And here is posted 4 a.m. today, January 12th, the CBC. It says Ukrainian investigators say they knew within hours a missile had downed PS-752. Ukrainian team in Tehran keeping close watch on what Iran does with the wreckage. So people are on the ground there. I'm not going to go through this article. I've got a couple more things to show you. So the link is in the description if you want to have a read. Here is farming in Ontario, and this is a tweet that went out yesterday, and it says, "Trudeau's photo-opping the heck out of this. Who does this? Sad pictures being released to the media. Seriously?" And so here's one, and I just think this one's awkward. I mean, it's just an awkward picture. Wouldn't it be ticklish? Okay, and here's a sad Trudeau picture, and this is from his official photographer, and I just wanted to, here's a link to it. This is the tweet, and there's interesting response in the comments. On one person says great capture, another person says the timing on this is mawkish and gross. So, and I mean, there's a lot of people are mixed on it, right? Divisive. And finally, this was sent out to my phone as I was doing my video here. Actually, when I started reading the Donald Trump tweets, my phone started buzzing, and it was on silent. It wasn't supposed to do that. So interesting, but right, this was sent to my phone at 9:11. So the first the first alert was sent to my phone at 7:24, and at 9:11 they sent out, "There is no active nuclear situation taking place at the Pickering Nuclear Generating Station. The previous alert was issued in error. There is no danger to the public or environment. No further action is required." Right, good, yay. I mean, yay. So we have all sorts of stuff going on. And I think these stories are still going to play out over the next few days, if not few weeks. And I still don't think it's going to hurt Trudeau as much as SNC hurt him. And we can see how much that hurt him. Re-elected Trudeau. But doesn't he look a little stressed? And that beard. Still. Very interesting times. And I think it's just going to get more interesting as the U.S. election heats up, the 2020 election heats up. We get into an active election season. And today I saw a picture of Joe Biden in some state somewhere, I can't remember which state, but he couldn't fill the gymnasium or even like a library. And Donald Trump is filling arenas. I don't know how deluded the Democrats need to be in order to continue on the policies they're putting forward, but it's clear it's not resonating. Like, I used to really enjoy American politics, and I used to watch it a lot closer, and then I started watching Canadian politics, and that's why I do my show now. But my goodness, it's really stark. It's a really stark difference from where politically, I think, where people were in 2012. It's interesting. And I don't know how long it'll take for Canada to realize what's going on. And the policies that the Democrats are pushing down in the United States are very similar to the policies that are being championed by our liberals. It's interesting. It's all really interesting. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's it for me today. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Oh, and I guess the last little bit of news is my Canada Report site is working now. I've got comments. Yay, comment section is going. So that's cool. And come on by and say hi. There's a mobile version too, although I don't like the mobile version. I'm going to look at making changes on that. But check it out. I think it's kind of cool, and I try and keep it updated. So come by and have a look. Leave a comment. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.